Welcome to episode 157 of Explode Your Expert Business Show, brought to you by gtex.org.uk. I'm your host, Simone Vincenzi, the Experts Strategist, and this is the podcast for experts who want to become the ultimate authority in their niche while making an impact in the world. And today I have the pleasure to interview the one and only Michael Sinnhuber. Michael is the king of presentation and one of only around 50 Prezi Independent Experts worldwide. His vision is to save this world from boring presentations. That's why he helps people and businesses to create and deliver unboring presentations that make them money and boost their success. And in this episode, we talk about how to create great presentation and they can boost your success because everything that really matters is presented. And then everybody, you can create and deliver outstanding presentations that get people on the edge of their seats and move them to take action. And also the other thing that we are going to cover is that you don't need to be a graphic designer to create visually engaged presentation, and is going to share with you how you can do that. If you want to read the transcript of the interview and get all the bonus resources, visit www.gtex.org.uk/157. And also make sure you connect with Michael here in the link in the show notes. Now, if you haven't downloaded yet our Ultimate Selling from the Stage checklist and you want to become awesome at selling from the stage and make money from seminars and webinars, then download your checklist right now. The link is in the show notes. And if you haven't joined our Facebook group, then join right now so you can get access to exclusive training like the one that we did recently on how to be featured on Forbes, which was an incredible training. A few people already got featured after it, and it was completely free for the group. And you can find it on Facebook at Explode Your Expert Biz. And if you want to reach out to me, message me and email me at simone@gtex.org.uk. It goes straight into my inbox. One more thing to do, which is subscribe to this podcast right now. I'm looking forward to seeing you on the other side. And now it's time to get started with how to create and deliver a boring presentation that make you money with Michael Sinnhuber. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Explode Your Expert Biz Show. Today, I'm here with the one and only Michael Sinnhuber. How you doing, Michael?
Hi, Simone. I'm doing fine. Great to have you, to be here.
That's fabulous. I'm really excited about the show today. It's all about creating awesome presentation, which are unboring presentation that makes us a lot of money. So as speakers, as trainers, as consultants, this is a must listen as an episode for you. So make sure that you stick until the end. But before we get started, what's your background, Michael? Tell us your story.
So my story kind of began how I came to the whole presentation thing is. So when I was back in university, I hated presentations like many people out there do. But all of a sudden I was in one course, and in that course we always had the opportunity to hold very brief presentations, like 1 or 2 minutes. So we had group discussions for 10 to 15 minutes, and then the teacher always said, like, yeah, can you sum up what you just did in the last 15 to 20 seconds? So 15 to 20 minutes. So, and this course was going for 2 days. So there were a lot of small presentations, and that everybody hated it. It was like, so who's first? And nobody wanted to raise his hand. So I was really tired of sitting there and waiting until somebody could get started. So I said, okay, let me do it.
Right.
And from that point on, then I saw, like, I did that for 2 minutes or something, and I saw that it was not that hard as I always thought it would be. So I did it again and again and again until the teacher said, like, yeah, Mr. Sinnhuber, we already know that you can do it, so let somebody else do it. And I was like, did she just say you can do it? So I felt like, oh my God, I just came into presentation, so to doing presentations better.
How old were you then?
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite sure I wasn't that good, but I was better than most. How old? 20, around 20, something like that. 21 something in that area. Cool. But from that point on, so as she said, you can do it, I started to kind of believe that I could do it. And so what I did in the next courses that I went in, and everybody, when they said like, who's presenting, is always me to raise my hand first. And what I learned is that everybody was avoiding presentations. And when you did the presentation, you always had an advantage, because when you step on stage, you're actually the one who gets all the credibility at the end of the talk. Although there might be 2 or 3 or 5 people involved in the whole process, but it's only you who gets the credibility. Absolutely. Because you are the one on stage and the one who is seen. And this is kind of what I realized back then, and what I always used after that. In my corporate jobs, I was working for HB for the longest part of my life, for nearly 10 years. I was an account manager back then. And so I knew that communication, presentation was really important for getting the message across, for delivering the message for our product, for our services, but also for getting into real good relationships with my clients. So I really used that. But after some time, so after 10 years or something, I was like, yeah, the corporate world is fine and you can learn a lot of, you can see a lot of things there. Mm-hmm. But I kind of realized that I am not the person for a corporate world. So then in 2011, I started my own business based on a hobby, kind of, because creating websites and online marketing was kind of a side hobby for me. Right. When I was still in university and then in my jobs, and so I created an online agency, so to say. But doing this online agency, I also did workshops and trainings, and I used Prezi as a software, which is if people don't know what Prezi is, it's an alternative software to PowerPoint or Keynote or whatever you use. And someone in a training came up and said like, "Hey Michael, could you do a Prezi training?" And I was like, who would be interested in a Prezi training? Because Prezi is really easy to use, and there are tutorials all over the internet on how to use it. And he said, yeah, we're just building a platform for all kinds of trainings and workshops that you can give online or offline. And we would love to have a Prezi training on there. And I said like, okay, let's do that.
Why not?
I could do that. Yeah, why not? So we just did that. And he set up a date, and I guess the date was online for about 2 or 3 days. And then I got calls saying from big companies saying like, yeah, we would like to go there, but we don't have time at the given date. So will there be more dates? And so I was quite surprised. I said, not yet, but we could do that. But then I asked them, are you the only person who would be interested in that? Or would there be more in your company? And she said like, yeah, we are in the marketing team, so we would be 4 or 5 people. And I said like, let's do a company training. And she said, yes. And I was, oh my God, I just sold a company training. I didn't even have the product at that time. So then I was like, okay, if selling a training or a workshop in that space is that easy, and if there are more people and more companies out there that would need that, I would kind of completely transfer my business from online marketing to presentations. And this is actually what I did in about then 5.5 or 6 years ago. And that's where a big shift in my business happened, because when I started out with online marketing and web design, I was working with small, not even medium-sized, but really small companies, solopreneurs, and all that stuff. So for them, when I say a website costs you 3,000 euros, it was like, oh my God, this is so much money. But if you're dealing with corporate clients, you know that the money is there. It's just a matter of spending the money. And all the calls that I got were from really big companies in Austria. So I was like, oh my God, this is easier to sell. And my target audience would be completely different, because I know that those people would have the money. So it was a big shift in my business. And from that point on, to late 2012, early 2013. I moved my business more and more over to presentations, and now it's like a 99% business.
And that's what you do right now.
Yeah.
I'm really curious about, do you run this presentation training mainly in Austria? Do you run them in other companies globally? Do you do them in English or not?
So by now it was mainly in the German language market. So it was Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. I have done presentations all over these countries. So I've been to Hamburg or whatever cities in Germany, Austria, and in Switzerland. But right now I'm kind of expanding my business to the online world and to doing it in English as well. So I did trainings in English for international companies in Germany, for example, but now I'm kind of expanding my services to more like online trainings, online workshops, online coaching even, and therefore also in English.
Because I being from another country myself and not being a native English speaking, I found that in particular when you're doing presentation training and you are from another native language, I found that initially for me there was an additional pressure because it's like, hey, here I am, I'll teach you how to do presentation, and sometimes they couldn't even understand what I was saying because my accent was so strong that I was talking too fast and I was eating my words. And I had some people that literally, I was teaching them public speaking, and they came to, and they were like, "What did you say?" That the blank stare of someone that doesn't understand. And so, how was for you to adjust your English because I'm sure that now there are a lot of, I'm asking this question because I know there are a lot of other people that are listening right now. Because this podcast, we have people from, I think, about more than 40 countries that are listening to this show. Mm-hmm. So not everyone is native English speaking. So how did you find your adjustment?
So back when I was working for HP, I learned that most of the English speakers are not native English speakers. So I was working in Austria for HP, but we had a strong connection. They called this EMEA, so Europe, Middle East, Africa. And so we had people from, I don't know, 40, 50, 60 countries or something like that. And they all got together and they all spoke English. Some are really good, some not that good, but it was always on a level where everybody could understand each other. So when you do presentation trainings, it's always like, or when you do presentations, it's always like, try to level it down from a content perspective and also from a language perspective so that everybody can understand you, and try to speak slow and create the sentences so that everybody can understand it. And it's funny that you are asking the question because about 3 or 4 days ago, I read a blog post from a US public speaking coach who said he did his first training in Europe, in France actually, and he had the same problem as he said, like, I am a native speaker and I'm talking English to people that I know that English is not their native language. So he was afraid that he would always use words that are much too sophisticated and they wouldn't understand. And he wrote a very long blog post about this, that he was really nervous, although he did, I don't know, hundreds and thousands of trainings before and workshops. Mm-hmm. And he was nervous because of that. And while talking, he said, like, he did exactly that. He tried to speak slowly, and he always was rethinking the words that he would use and keep it simple. And I mean, it's always, when you talk about presentation, there's always the sentence coming up sometime being less is more, and keep it simple. So those are two phrases that come up again and again, and they are actually, they should be used by everybody, no matter if you're a native speaker or not. It's always try to keep it as simple as possible so that people can take your core message with them, no matter where you're from in the world.
So now I think this is a great transition to the meat of this interview, when we are going to talk about how to create unboring presentations. So tell me, how can someone is a speaker and they've already been speaking for a while, or they are starting out? What? Okay, let's start from this way. Let's start this way right now, because I'm getting my train of thoughts right now. Let's start from this. What makes a boring presentation first?
Um, I guess everybody has been there.
Yeah, exactly.
So one thing that combines every boring presentation is typically a PowerPoint or any slide-based presentation where there's too much text involved. So just a simple example. I was visiting an evening conference where there was only one speech, and it was like it was in around Christmas time, so everybody came together, and everybody know that after the first speech or thing, there is always food involved. So people came there after their work, and they were just you could see that there were 450 people in the room, and you could see that they were all just hungry and waiting for something, getting something to drink or to eat. And then they had a university teacher who was a really expert in what she was talking about. But what she did is she just stepped on stage, she smashed on her fully packed text slides, and after just a minute, you saw like, okay, she's reading her slides. So everybody was like, okay, attention is gone. And then the noise level in that room was getting louder and louder and louder. And after about 2 minutes, you couldn't even understand what she was saying because everybody was talking in that room. So then you say, like, okay, this is really, this might be boring, but okay, she will talk for about 50 minutes or so, and then there will be something to eat. But going back to normal meeting presentations or conferences or whatever, you mainly see that two parts involved. The one is people typically do not plan their stuff really good, so they just smash in everything in a PowerPoint. They're like, I have everything with me, and they think that the more information they deliver, the better. But you can always compare it with, I always say, in my workshops, I always do an experiment with tennis balls. And I was just like, how many? So the first question is there any good presentation that you can remember from, let's say, the last 6 months? And typically you have around 10% of the people that remember any presentation. And if they do so, they might say like, yeah, the presenter was really good and he was really excited and something like that. But if you ask what was the content or what was the title, you have maybe another 10% of those 10% that can remember that. Mm-hmm. So what I'm talking about is you hold a presentation and nobody remembers what you're talking about. So you only have, let's say, 1 to 3 messages that you can deliver in one presentation. And then we're back to the less is more, where you have to define, if you have to choose 1 to 3 messages that you want to deliver, like giving it in a bag, putting it in a bag and handing this bag over, here is my message. So what would this message be? And people typically don't think about that because they think, I have so many exciting news and so exciting content to tell. I have to show that I'm an expert. And if I put that all in, people will just say like, oh my God, this is a really expert, but it's not. So this is the big problem. So people are typically using far too much information. And if they use this information not only in a verbal sense, but they have it all on their slides in written, then it's becoming really, really, really boring, because people always will read faster as you can speak. So they will always be faster with the content. And if they realize that you're just reading your slides, then the attention is completely gone and it will never come back again. So, and that's why people don't remember what people were talking about on stage.
Okay,
so.
now let's flip the coin and talk about what makes then a great presentation? Because we
So what
mentioned
makes
that.
a great presentation? The first thing is like, I guess, is you need to grab the attention of your audience right from the start, and then you must be your story must be interesting so that you can move them through your story and kind of take them by the hand from start to finish. So kind of, you could say like the goal should be to have them on the edge of their seats right from the beginning until to the end. And so one thing is to start off by thinking about the end, so that from start to the end, that it's like one big story. You can have a lot of small stories in there, but from start to end, it should be one big story covering all your content. And if you end strong, it's always good if you kind of end like with the thing that you began. So if you, for example, begin, which is always a good thing to do, you don't begin with saying like, I'm Michael Sinnhuber and I come from this company and we have 150 employees all over the world, and so and people like, oh my God, how long will this take? When will he start talking about what he's really so don't do that. This will be the first tip. And then it's like, when you plan a presentation, the first thing is, what is my core message? What is the one message, the one thing that I want people to remember when they leave the room? And then when you have that, you plan your story around this one big thing, so that everything that you say kind of adds up to this one big thing, so that they always will remember it. And adding up to this is always good when you pack it in a story. And the easiest way to build a story is typically that you just step in the shoes of your clients, of your audience, and take them through their journey. So if you want to sell a product, it's always the question, what problems does your product solve?
Yeah.
And then you start with a challenge and say like, okay, dear audience, I know that you have problem XYZ, and now I tell you how to deal with that, something. Or you can always good examples are always shown in those explainer videos, for example. They typically start with, this is Michael, and Michael has blah blah blah, and then it goes on like this, and then they tell a short story. And after 2 minutes, you know what the product is all about, what the service is all about, and it was all packed in a good story, and it got your attention from start to the beginning, from the beginning to the end, so that at the end of the story you can remember what the message was, and this is what makes it.
So we were talking about you mentioned a few things. You mentioned the beginning. We have a strong beginning. You mentioned the fact of sharing a story, so making sure that starting with the end in mind, you have a big story, and then with small other learnings included in the bigger learning. And then also you mentioned the fact of solving a problem, making sure that you're solving a problem that the audience has, so then actually you get their attention. So I want to go back to the first part because you mentioned creating an amazing introduction. Can you give us an example of a presentation that you gave where you created an incredible introduction to stand out?
So yeah, back in the time where I was doing more of the online marketing stuff, a small company that I know, they said they wanted to change their corporate design. So like a new website and new everything, like all the printed things like letterheads and all that stuff. And he said to me, we would invite 3 to 5 agencies to kind of pitch their services and their ideas. And I said, like, yeah, I would be interested in that. And when I came there, before we started, we said, like, can we change the logo as well? And he was like, why would you change the logo? And I was like, yeah, I think that the logo that you have now, it's not sending the right message to what you are actually doing. And he's just like, yeah, if that's one idea, come up with the new logo. And when we came there for the presentation day or for the pitch days, so I was the last one, number 5. And when I entered the room, he said to me, well, we have seen everything. So the challenge is really high for you now, which is the worst thing that you can hear when you come there for a pitch presentation. But did
you know already that you were the last one?
Yeah, I know that I was the last one, but I didn't think that he would say something like that.
Right.
When I entered the room, actually. But I was quite sure that the others would just go there and say like, okay, this is my idea for the website. This is how the letterhead would look like, and so on and so forth. So what I did is I said like, okay, let's create a story around all this, because this is what they will expect us to do. So we have to be different to kind of stand out of the crowd. So what we did is, it was about an IT company. They were in IT security and all that stuff. So I started the presentation with, the world is unsecure. And every day you hear of people or of businesses that got hacked or something like that, or notebooks are stolen and all the passwords are and everything like that. So, and then we developed the story from that the whole world is unsecure, and especially in the IT world and so on. And then we kind of showed them what people would do. When it's unsecure, they are looking for a security expert, and that's who they are. So what they do, they go to Google, they type in security expert, and then they will not find them, because they were really bad in search engine optimization. So they were on page 6 or 7 or 8, and I showed it to them. And then we moved the story along until we came to the final, why we would change the logo and so on and so forth. And this is how the logo would look like. And then it were about 5 minutes or so. And they were like, okay, what's that? And then the second part of the journey would then be like, okay, this is the new logo. So the logo would look like this on the webpage, and like this on the letterhead, and like this on the business card. And then they were really kind of flashed. They were like, okay, we didn't expect that. So, and they were asking 100 questions or something like that. And it's always, if people ask a lot of questions,
that's a good sign.
You know,
that's a really good
right
sign. Yeah. Did you get the contract at the end?
Yeah, we got the contract then. So we were the last. We had the hurdle was really high, and we jumped over it. So yeah, and this is typically what we also do when we create presentations for our clients, because many of our clients are in pitch situations like this, but with much more money involved. So in this case, it was, I don't know, a 10 to 15,000 euro contract, something like this. But we have clients that are talking about a 6-figure, 7-figure, and we even had a 9-figure pitch 2 or 3 months ago, where they said like, okay, if we lose this pitch, we have to close down one department with around 20 people. So it's more than 100 million for the next 5 years. We need this. And then they said, okay, we have to do something completely different than all the others just to stand out. And this is what we did. So we also came up with a story and tried to say like, okay, we know they were working together quite long with that company, so they exactly knew where their pain points were, and they just started with the pain points and said like, okay, we know where your pain points are, and we just want to tell you how we can help you, and so on and so forth. And also in this case, they got the contract, and so then it's everything's fine.
I'm hearing you saying that stories are really the key of an exciting presentation, because if you have a story which is the master story from beginning to end, you have small stories in the middle, you need to know the story of the people that you're talking to, so what's their story in their mind, and what's the story of the audience, so then you can align your presentation and your stories to their stories. It's like a story within a story within a story. It feels like watching a movie, right?
Yeah.
Feels like you watch a movie is exciting because there is a story of one character and the story of another character that merge together in the story of the whole movie.
Yeah. Exactly. And when you create those stories, you always have to have one thing in mind that most people don't think about. Typically, it's always people are in the audience always ask themselves, what's in it for me? So a presentation is never or should never be about the presenter or about the company, about the product. It should always be about what's in it for the audience. So why should the audience care about what I'm talking about? Because people don't come to a conference because I am speaking there. I'm not a Hollywood star or something like that. So if I don't know if it's Angelina Jolie or something, then they say like, I want to see this girl one day, or any very favorite movie star or something like that. But typically as a speaker, you're not the star. So they say like, okay, I've read about the topic, so I just want to know how can this topic help me in my own business? And if you switch this around and think about that right from the beginning when you're planning out the presentation, always think like, what's in it for my audience? And you deliver just what's in it for them, then you will always have it easier to get their attention, to make them remember, and to create the story and the stories within the stories to make them remember, to kind of put them in the story. And it's always easier for them from an emotional point of view to go through that story when they feel involved in that, because they see what's in it for them.
Love it. I absolutely love it. So guys, remember, stories are key. Now I want to transition, Michael, to the next part of our interview, which is called the lifting the veil. And that's where you're going to reveal in a moment something that you do behind the scene that helps you massively to grow your business. Something that you're doing that for you is a game changer. When you found out that thing, it was like, oh my God, this is awesome. This is what's working for me. It can be a marketing strategy, a sales strategy, a system, a tool. You choose. What is right now that you are doing to grow your business? Let's lift the veil.
So actually, right at this moment, I'm changing my whole business. So as I said before, I started my agency some years ago, and it really worked well so I had the corporate clients right now, or until now, and it really works fine from a financial perspective, and also from working with those prospects and so on. But on the other hand, I always had the feeling that I should have help more people out there, because I also get emails and phone calls from people, even from students, where I know from the first minute on that they cannot afford the services that I'm typically offering. So then I thought like, I have to enlarge my offers. So this is what I am doing right now, that I'm going more like, I have a vision that's called like saving the world from boring presentations. So this is like a big overall vision. I had that as a slogan on my business card from the start. And this is probably a kind of a small elevator pitch, because when you are at events or something, people typically ask you, what are you doing?
What do you
And
do?
when you say like, I do web design, then they're like, oh my God, that is boring. This is
So
like
exciting.
3
Whoa, another
It's
one.
like, okay, and so the conversation is stopped before it's even began. But when you have a small elevator pitch, it doesn't have to be on a business card. But if you have that, you have a good answer for the question, what are you doing? This is a real game changer in personal communication. So because when I give it to them, or I say like, I save the world from boring presentations, you get a smile from them, and then they're like, yeah, this is presentation. I know this is this thing about less and more and all that stuff, and then you start a conversation.
Yeah.
And this is what you need to build a relationship with people. You're not selling them anything. You just say like, I save the world from boring presentations. So not selling, but building a relationship. And this is what I learned in the last few months, actually, when I started growing my business more from an offline to an online business, or expanding, let's say expanding. Because my business has always been online. Because I say like 95% of the clients, I never meet them in real life. So we only do that via telephone, via Skype, email, or whatever. So it's really an online business. And what was working for me to make it to six figures actually was one simple, or maybe one of the simplest online marketing things that are available, and it's Google AdWords. Plain and simple, right? So it's a combination of organic search engine optimization, which I did in my agency before, and then combined with paid search with Google AdWords. And so I just did that for my target market. So you have to know what's your target market. So from a geographical point of view. So for me, it was the German language market with those countries, and also from what people would be searching for. So they typically search for getting a presentation done, or presentation agency, or something like that in German language, of course. But this is actually how I built my business. Like say 85% of this was Google AdWords, and the rest of the 15% were just word of mouth from people that I worked with. But then it's always about relationship. But what I learned when I kind of transferred it now to more in the online world is that the online world is really, really, really big. And you have big chances out there, but you have to know who your target audience is again.
Yeah.
So and what I do now is I do a lot of LinkedIn prospecting, and again in this way is if you go in this way, and it really works very well. I've done that for 2 months now. And the response rate is just enormous. It's just really, really good. But what you have to do is not sell, but build relationships if you want to grow. Because people smell selling right from the first minute. And if you approach them with a selling message, then they are gone before you even started a conversation with them. But if you approach them in like, I just something like, I just saw that we have similar interests, and let's talk, something like that. It's really, really super easy, or super generic even. But this is what helps you to start a conversation. And then when they come back to your LinkedIn profile, and then they just see like what you're doing, and if they're interested what you're doing, then you can start the conversation. And then in the fourth or fifth or sixth message that you are converting, it's like then you can start to sell what you actually do.
Yeah.
And this works really well if you do it right. But never try to sell them from the first message on.
So we have two things doing really well. One, and first of all, know your target audience. That's the overall message. And then Google Ads, and as well LinkedIn organic relationship building. They both work incredibly well. Fantastic, Michael. Thank you very much for this interview. Now it's time to wrap up. Before we leave, how can people get in touch with you? How can people reach out to you if they want to create an unboring presentation?
So as I said, I'm just rebuilding my whole business. So I'm in a kind of a rebranding phase also. But the best thing to reach me now would be via my personal website, which is michaelsinnhuber.com. It's like my first name and surname. I'm sure you will
put the link
send a link. You would put a link in there somewhere. And there's also one subpage where it says book me, so you can always book a free consultation call with me. It's a 20-minute call where you just tell me what your challenges are in presentation. Then it's free, and we can just talk, and then maybe I can give you some tips and tricks, and maybe we can take it even further. But as I said, this one will be free. And what I'm building right now, as I said, like saving the world from boring presentations, what I'm building now is called Presenter World. And it will be a combination, or an ecosystem of everything that I do, from a done-for-you service, what I'm doing with my agency right now, to coaching. There will be online trainings involved, and I'm even planning to build an experts network where people like me, or speakers, speaking coaches maybe even, come together, share their best practices, and support the higher course, so to say, on saving the world from boring presentations. So I want to bring that all together. That's why I called it Present the World, and it will then be reachable on presenter.world. This will be the main domain then.
Brilliant, fantastic. So guys, make sure that you get in touch with Michael. All the links are going to be in the show notes. So scroll down and you will find them, or you can find them as well in our blog post that we wrote about this interview. Michael, thank you very, very much for this interview. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you, Simone. Thanks for having me.
And ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening to, again, another episode of Explode Your Expert Biz Show. Remember two things. Number one, click that subscribe button so you don't miss any other episode. You enjoyed this interview? Of course you did. It was an amazing interview. So click that subscribe button right now. And also leave us a review. Let me know, what did you enjoy the most from this interview with Michael, because in this way we will know what you liked, and as well we will pick the best reviews, and we are going to give you a shout out at the beginning of next episode. So make sure that you put that review down. Before we leave, one more thing, which is, remember that together we always grow exponentially. I'll see you next time. Ciao.